Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you're watching this video lecture. Today, let's discuss about one of the important decisions taken by the financial management faculty, financial management team in any company, that is dividend decisions. So, dividend decisions is also one of the key decisions taken by the management. Other than dividend decision, there is a financing decision already, and there is investment decision also, which has to be taken. Financing decision is about raising finance from which sources. Investment decision is about where to invest the money so raised by applying capital budgeting theories or techniques. After doing all this, when the company gets some profits, what should happen to those profits? That's what is dividend decision all about. So this is third biggest decision as part of the other financial decisions: financing, investment, and dividend decisions. So this chapter focuses upon the importance of dividend decisions. So first of all, what are the learning outcomes here? Naturally, to understand the meaning of the dividend decision, understand the importance of the dividend decision, and discuss various types of dividend or forms of dividend, and also discuss various determinants of dividend. In other words, which factors will influence the dividend decision also will be discussed in this chapter. And core aspect coming to the numerical problems also is going to be about the theories of dividend decisions. Now, what are these theories related to the dividend policies, like hypothesis, Modigliani-Miller, and Walter's model, Gordon's model? These are the three important and major models in this chapter. Of course, there are two more less important, but which are there in the syllabus. So we have to just go through them. Those are traditional theories and Lindner's model. Before going to these theories, first of all, we have to recapitulate what we already know, that financial decisions broadly will have three types of categories of decisions. One is the financing decision, two is investment decision, three is dividend decisions. Financing decisions encompass through cost of capital, capital structure, leverages. Those are the chapters which are covered in the financial decisions as far as our syllabus is concerned. Investment decisions are related to the capital budgeting technique being used for the purpose of taking investment decisions. And of course, when risk also has to be considered in the investment decisions, how to treat that. Those two are part of investment decisions. Simply speaking, capital budgeting and risk analysis in capital budgeting, those two chapters focus mostly on investment decision. Now the topic we are looking at is dividend decision. So dividend decision is of course one of the most important areas of the management decisions, no doubt about it. But the question here is, what is the major problem that any management faces while taking this type of dividend decision? First of all, the dividend decision is majorly about whether to pay dividend or not. That is the first thing. Second thing is, okay, we have decided to pay dividend, but how much to pay is the second thing. But both of them are to be decided by the management according to various considerations that they have to take into account. Don't be under a wrong impression that we are going to take any decisions here. The theories which are going to be studied by us are telling whether dividend decisions are relevant or not. That's all. How to take a dividend decision actually, should dividend be paid or not? If paid, how much to be paid? None of that, nobody has any theory for it. There is no hard and fast rule for it, and there is no formula or a kind of predetermined approach for it. That has to be definitely decided by the management. Decision is completely with the management. But of course, the considerations, the factors which the management will have to take into consideration while taking dividend decision are very important. Those things we will quickly go through as part of the discussion related to dividend decisions. Of course, the crux of this topic is definitely going to be the theories. One is the hypothesis, the one which says that dividend is irrelevant. So hypothesis is a kind of irrelevance theory, just like capital structure theories. There also hypothesis argued the same thing, that capital structure is irrelevant. Same argument is continued here in the form of saying dividend decisions are also irrelevant. Ultimately, what matters to the organization is its performance, but not these type of capital structure decisions or dividend decisions, is the argument of Modigliani and Miller. So they continue their argument here in the dividend decisions also, saying that dividends are irrelevant. And there are other models which will say that dividends are relevant, like Walters model and Gordon model. These are the three major theories which have to be studied in this chapter of dividend decisions and dividend policy. That is what is the scope of this chapter, we can say. Naturally, what is the basic thing related to dividend? Everybody should know that a company earns profit after tax. Okay, if that profit after tax is distributed, that is the same thing that we are going to call as dividend. If the profit is distributed, it is dividend. If it is retained, if it is not distributed, that becomes retained earnings. Nothing new in that. That is the same thing that everybody of us know already. Now looking at what is the significance of dividend policy, which is again a theoretical question probably, which can be asked also. So why dividend policy is significant for any organization? So dividend policy is a kind of financing decision also. Why? Because when an organization retains some money, that retained earnings are also part of the source of finance. So if the organization distributes too many dividends, that means retained earnings are less. So if the organization suddenly requires some finance, it has to go outside and again borrow it separately and again raise it separately. So dividend decision need not be taken completely separate from the financing decision. It is also a part of a long-term financing decision. So that depends upon whether the organization has opportunities in hand to invest the amount of the profits if retained. Okay, if the organization decides to retain, what it will do with that? If it has sufficient investment opportunities, definitely it is better to retain. If not, better to distribute dividend. Then, whether that return on such investment, which is made by the organization, is higher than the expectations of the shareholders. What is expectation of the shareholder? Nothing but KE, cost of equity. If the company can earn better return than KE, then only such investment opportunities are good. Otherwise, they are not good. We know that already. So, keeping the same considerations in mind, a management of a company has to take a decision how much to retain and how much to distribute as dividends. Of course, these are all part of the factors which the managements will consider while distributing dividends. But the points here to be noted is dividend policy is also a kind of long-term financing decision because it will have straight impact on the financing decisions of the organization. That is first point. And dividend policy also involves wealth maximization because ultimately the financial management's objective itself is wealth management. Why wealth maximization is also part of the dividend policy? Because dividend policy will definitely have dividend payout ratio that will have a relationship on the market price per share. And what is the wealth? Simply market price per share. So will dividend policy have impact on the market price per share or not? Of course, hypothesis says there is no impact. But in general, if you observe, yes, there is impact of dividend policy on the market price. If there is impact on our market price, means automatically there is impact on wealth maximization. So dividend policy has to be looked at even like a wealth maximization dividend decision also. But in general, once again, we cannot jump to conclusions But in general, what happens is, usually the market imperfections and uncertainty will exist. So usually the shareholders will prefer near dividends or far capital gains. Usually most of the shareholders prefer near dividends than future capital gains and future dividends. So that is why definitely in reality, lots of cases, particularly when we look at imperfect markets and uncertainties which exist in any market, payment of dividends has an influence on the market price of the share for sure. Usually, the higher dividends will increase the value of the shares because people think that this is a good company with a good dividend payout ratio. So people would like to buy such share. When they buy the share, usually the share market price will increase for such shares. And the ones with less dividends are less preferred by shareholders. Again, these are not some extraordinarily intelligent and rational shareholders. As assumed by Modigliani Miller, normally people are not that rational. People think sometimes irrationally also. According to that, in reality, they will prefer dividends because they need money now. They want money now. If anybody is given an option to get money now or in future, everybody prefers now. Dividends are given by the company to the shareholders now. So shareholders will prefer that naturally. So they don't want to wait for the future excellent, fantastic days that are going to come. They want the things to be delivered to them now. Usually that is the general mentality of the people. So that is why dividend policies will have an impact on the market price, and market price is nothing but wealth. That means dividend policies have an impact on wealth maximization also. Of course, a proper balance has to be struck. Entire financial management is all about balance. It has to be always balancing the various things. Debt and equity have to be balanced. Liquidity and profitability have to be balanced. So wealth maximization, profit maximization has to be balanced. So all of them has to be balanced, and here also distribution of dividends and retained earnings has to be also balanced. So that is the point here to be noted. Of course, the point here, core point is, the question is whether dividend policy has an impact on market price or not. If we say yes, then only this point is valid. If Modigliani Miller would see this second point, they say no, this is not correct. So that is different story. That is an exception. Leave it aside. But usually dividend policy decisions are definitely part of the long-term financing decision making of the organization, and also they will impact the wealth maximization objective of the organization. That's it. That is the significance of dividend policy in general, we can say. Now, what types of dividends can be paid by the companies in India? Naturally, one is cash dividend. The second one is stock dividend. Stock dividend in India, we call it as bonus shares. Bonus shares is nothing but distributing the shares in lieu of cash dividend. So instead of giving cash, the company capitalizes its reserves, and those retained earnings or reserves or the existing owners' funds which are capitalized now, those will be given as bonus shares to the shareholders. That is why bonus shares are also called as capitalization of profits. Profits means not necessarily the current year's profits. They will be reserves and surplus or retained earnings which are there already in the balance sheet of the organization, which were earlier under the reserves and surplus. Now just they are being converted into shares, nothing else. But the total net worth in case of bonus shares is not affected. That is an important point. That also we should already know. But bonus shares are also a kind of dividend, but that is not a cash dividend. That is called as stock dividend. Instead of giving cash, company is giving shares to the shareholders, naturally free of cost. So that is why they are called bonus shares or stock dividend. Cash dividend can be paid in the form of cash. So cash does not mean company knocks the door and gives currency to the shareholders. It can give in the form of checks, warrants, demand drafts, directly bank transfers. That is all part of the cash dividend, but not in kind. In India, dividend in kind is not allowed. That is illegal. In some other countries, it is not a problem. Dividend can be given in kind also in some other countries like America. But in India, dividend cannot be given in kind. It has to be given either in the form of cash or in the form of bonus shares. That's all. These are the only two ways that dividend can be distributed to the shareholders in India. And there are certain things like what are the advantages of the stock dividend and disadvantages of the stock dividend. These things you can generally go through them, which are part of the bonus shares discussion. Ideally, you should be already knowing them. If not, also go through them for theoretical questions which are possible to be asked as short note questions. Now another point here to be noted is retained earnings and growth. Are they related with each other? This also is another point we already know. G is equal to BR. This formula we already know, that is growth rate is equal to B into R. So what is B? B is the retention ratio. And what is retention ratio? It is the complement of payout ratio. So retention ratio, always whenever we say here B, what is that? That is retention ratio, which is nothing but 1 minus payout ratio. That is retention ratio. That is B. R is what? R is the rate of return on investment. Sometimes can be called as just internal rate of return for an organization or return on investment for an organization. That means normally what return that an organization can earn on its investments. That is the rate of return on investments. Multiplying these two will give us the growth rate of the firm. So G is equal to B multiplied with R. B is retention ratio, R is IRR or ROI, as the case may be, depending upon the information given in the question. Now, will the retained earnings have any impact on the growth or not? Definitely yes, because retained earnings are going to be used as a part of the source of finance. And if they are used, and if the organization has investment opportunities, definitely it is going to get better benefit by retaining the earnings, because it earns more return on investment than the company which distributes everything as dividend and no retained earnings are there. Of course, for this point, we need to keep an assumption that an organization has investment opportunities. Let us look at this general example for understanding purposes. Let us say there are two companies, A Limited and B Limited. Capital employed is 50 lakhs rupees, and completely it is in the form of equity shares of 100 rupees each, no debt. And each are earning 20% on the capital employed. That means 50 lakhs rupees, 20% means 10 lakhs rupees is their earnings. Both have same capital structure and same return on investment, but different dividend policy. Everything else is same, only thing different is dividend policy. A Limited distributes 100% dividend, 100% of its earnings as dividend. That means its payout ratio is how much? 100%. B Limited distributes 50% earnings as dividend. That means its payout ratio is how much? 50%. Payout ratio, you should remember the formula already. Payout ratio is nothing but out of the earnings, how much is distributed as dividend, how much is paid out. Payout ratio means that. In other words, simply DPS by EPS. Out of the earnings, how much is distributed. A Limited distributes 100%, B Limited distributes only 50%. Now keep that in mind. What are the retained earnings for A Limited in this particular year? Entire earnings, which are 10 lakhs rupees. How do we know 10 lakhs? Because 50 lakhs rupees is the capital employed, 20% is the return on investment. So earnings are approximately 10 lakhs. And entire amount is distributed as dividend, means there are no retained earnings at all. That is for A Limited. What about B Limited? B Limited also earned the same 10 lakhs, no doubt. But it did not distribute entire amount as dividend. It distributed only 50% as dividend, which means it has a retained earnings of 5 lakhs. So now the capital of A Limited and B Limited are not same. A Limited continues to have the capital of 50 lakhs because it does not have any retained earnings. But B Limited has 50 lakhs original capital plus retained earnings. That means B Limited has a total capital of 55 lakhs now. So this 5 lakhs which is retained also can be used for the investments by B Limited as a source of finance. So for the current year, how much profit A Limited earns considering the same 20% on capital employed? A Limited continues to earn 10 lakhs, but B Limited will earn 11 lakhs, which is 20% on 55 lakhs. That means what? B Limited has grown. A Limited has not grown. B Limited has grown. So what is the growth of earnings in B Limited? Growth of earnings in B Limited is 10%. Earlier it was getting 10 lakhs. Now it got 11 lakhs. So 10% growth happened in B Limited. So the point is, how did we get this 10%? What is the growth rate of B Limited? How did we get this 10%? That is again simple. B into R. What was B? Retention ratio for B Limited 0.5, because retention ratio is 1 minus payout ratio. Payout ratio 50% means retention ratio is also 50%. That is 0.5. Multiplied with R. R means what? Rate of return on investment, which is 20%. So let us say 0.2, 20%. That means 0.5 into 0.2, naturally it will be 0.1 is the G for B Limited. What is that G in percentage terms? Same, B into R, that is 10%. So that can be seen with this example. Originally, A Limited's earnings, B Limited earnings both were same. But since B Limited has a different dividend policy, because of its dividend policy, B Limited has grown by 10%. That means the earnings of B Limited have grown by 10%, whereas earnings of A Limited have not grown at all. So does growth and retained earnings have relationship? Yes. Does growth and dividend policy have a relationship? Naturally, yes, because retained earnings are coming out of dividend policy only. So that is a proof with a simple example for understanding purposes. So this formula G is equal to BR is something that we should already know. If not, know it now. That is also part of the dividend policies concepts. Now, what are the various determinants of dividend decisions? A very, very, very important theory question. If at all a straight question can be asked from this chapter as a theory question, this will be that. What are the various considerations that managements take while taking dividend decisions? Various determinants are there. You need to remember these side headings, and of course the concept of them also to be understood. Availability of funds. Naturally, when the company has sufficient cash, then only it can declare dividend. If it does not have cash, it cannot declare dividend. So definitely availability of funds is an important aspect of dividend policy. So sufficient liquidity is required for taking dividend decisions. That is one point. Cost of capital also matters. Imagine if the cost of capital of the company is high, then it will be always difficult to raise new capital. Imagine if the cost of debt is cheaper and cost of equity and retained earnings is very costly, then there is no point of retaining. If the company has the facility, definitely it can go for debt compared with retained earnings. So it depends on the cost of capital also. Capital structure, of course, is an important point in case of taking dividend decisions. A proper debt equity ratio has to be considered in the dividend decisions. If the firm has already too much of debt, it cannot go for further debt. That means it has no option but to finance itself from the retained earnings, which cannot give more dividend. It has to retain a lot of its earnings. So whenever dividend decision is taken, these factors have to be also considered. The cost of capital, capital structure, availability of funds, liquidity also. Stock price is another important thing. Practically, this is the most important thing because companies always would like to have their stock prices high. They don't want their stock prices to fall because that is the wealth of their shareholders. So if dividends have impact on the stock prices, carefully dividends have to be declared, keeping the stock prices also into consideration. And of course, investment opportunities in hand. If the company has sufficient and fantastic investment opportunities, why should it declare dividend? It is better to invest in those opportunities because it has a requirement also for those opportunities. So rather than declaring dividend and later searching for finance, better to retain the earnings and apply those retained earnings in those investment opportunities. That is another logic for dividend policies. Again, there also it depends. Investment opportunities are there. That also has to be coupled with the position of the company, the capital structure of the company. If the investment opportunities are there which can be funded with debt, then there is no problem. If there is a possibility of gaining good debt, obtaining and raising a good debt, then there is no issue. You can go for that because it is cheaper anyway. However, if the debt to equity ratio already reached its threshold and no more debt can be raised, but still there are a lot of good investment opportunities which the company can invest in, then there is no logic of declaring huge dividends. Better to retain the earnings and use that as a source of finance for those investment opportunities. But once again, that also depends upon the internal rate of return or the return on investment of the organization. Imagine there are fantastic investment opportunities, no doubt, but they are giving a return which is less than what the shareholders expect. That is where the cost of capital comes in. In terms of cost of equity, let us say the shareholders expect 12% return, but the company's internal rate of return is only 8%. So is it better to invest or to give them, the shareholders? Better to give them, let them go and invest themselves. If their expectations are 12%, let them go and invest at that place where they get 12%. But this company cannot get 12% in its internal rate of return, which means better to distribute dividends rather than retain it. However, when it is better to retain, if the internal rate of return or the return on investment which can be achieved by the company is more than the expectation of the shareholders. Then only it is better to retain, otherwise better to distribute as dividends. So that also plays a crucial role in the dividend decisions. Of course, trend of the industries is certain industries will generally have a tendency of declaring dividends. For example, FMCG industries, stabilized industries, those industries will give dividends almost a standard amount of dividend. There will not be much of fluctuations like that since around at least, if not earlier, at least since 10 to 15 years of the past records, the software companies, the information technology companies in India are almost giving dividends. Let us say if Infosys is giving a fantastic dividend, Wipro is giving a fantastic dividend, TCS, if it says that I will not give dividend this time because I have a lot of investment opportunities, people don't like it. So the pressure is on the companies also to follow the trend of the industry. All these things we will say dialogues, big dialogues, we are not following any trend, we will create a trend. All these dialogues will be good in cinemas. In reality, people's expectations have to be met by the businesses because they are businesses, first of all. So they need to have their stock prices high. They don't, and they cannot afford to have their stock prices going low. So to survive in the market, sometimes they just have to follow the trend in the industry also, no option. And that puts a lot of pressure on them. In fact, to be frank, one of the reasons why Satyam Computers earlier had to do lots of financial frauds for the purpose of giving dividends and for the purpose of keeping the shareholders happy, Mr. Ramaling Raju had to do that. That's what he said. I'm not defending him. But definitely it is quite possible. If the shareholders' pressure and market pressure is not there, why is there a necessity for a fantastic company to do all these frauds? Why should they cook up their books? Not necessary. They had to do that because the pressure in the market, stock market particularly, to consistently maintain the dividend percentages, consistently maintain the growth. Like that, the expectations will be. Expectations are always high. If a particular company is growing at 8%, but if the expectation of the market is that it will grow by 12%, still the stock prices will fall. Arey Baba, that company is not falling, it is still growing. When the entire world is falling, if that company is growing, that company has done a good job. But still, if the expectation is 12%, but reality of that company's growth is only 8%, still the people and investors don't like the share of that company. They will try to bring the price of that company's share down. That is the reality of it, harsh reality of the market. Market always be like that. Point is, keeping that also in mind, dividend decisions have to be taken. It is a practical consideration more than a theoretical consideration. See, theoretically speaking, a company has to look at inwards. Sir, boss, what is my availability of funds? What is my capital structure? What is my cost of capital? These are all the things which the company has to look inwards. And how many investment opportunities I have, the company knows that, management knows that. What is the return that I can generate on my investments? The management knows that. But external things also it has to keep in mind, that is stock prices and trend of the industry also kept in mind. Same thing with expectations of shareholders, the continuation of that. Usually the expectation of shareholders will be that there will be a dividend regularly that is coming from the company. So most of the shareholders, if they are expecting that, then you cannot completely defy their expectations. If you defy the expectations of shareholders, they don't like your share, they will sell it. When more people sell it, stock price of the company will go down. So usually there are broadly two categories of shareholders. One who invest for regular income in the form of dividend. The other ones who usually invest for growth. How do you know that? You cannot take a survey that how many of you want income, how many of you want growth. They will anyway express themselves in the AGMs, annual general meetings, that they want dividend, they don't want dividend, like that. But still, point is, the company somehow has to try to balance these two expectations. It is not easy. It is always difficult to balance this because there will be always people of both the kinds. If you satisfy the people who want growth by not distributing dividend and retaining the earnings and then investing those in a fantastic investment opportunity, at the same time you are disappointing those people who expected dividend. They wanted dividend. What we can say? They will be disappointed. And reverse will happen if you distribute dividend. If you distribute dividend, people who want growth, they will be disappointed. So difficult to manage the expectations of shareholders, but yes, that is a circus. That is the financial management all about. Balancing and always having a trade-off is the overall essence of financial management, and the same thing applies here also for dividend decisions. And there are so many legal constraints. We don't need to go through them now in detail because you should be already knowing these things. Section 123 of the Companies Act has a lot of restrictions on the dividend. Dividend shall be declared only out of the profits of the company of the current year or of the previous years, but cannot be declared definitely from the capital profits. Like that, lot of restrictions are there. These have to be followed by the company. They cannot just like that declare dividend according to their whims and fancies. And another important consideration, particularly in India, is taxation, because these things keep on changing. Just if you see the situation, just now, very recently, just till last year, there was a dividend distribution tax or corporate dividend tax, which the companies had to pay. But at the time of when they distribute dividend, who has to pay that? Companies have to pay that at the time of distribution of dividend. But on the other side, the dividends in the hands of the shareholders were exempt at least up to 10 lakhs rupees. Beyond that only it was taxable earlier, just 1 year back also. Now that is amended, that is changed. What is the new rule now? Company need not pay any distribution tax. There is no need of companies paying any dividend distribution tax. But on the other side, the exemption is removed from the hands of the shareholders, which means dividends are now taxable in the hands of shareholders. So the exemption of section 1034 shall not apply to the people who have received the dividends on or after 1/4/2020. So during the previous year 2021, which is the latest one, usually there is a dividend taxability for the shareholders, but there is no taxability of dividend distribution tax in the hands of the company. So once again it is shifted. It was like this around 6-7 years back or 8 years back. That time they have shifted the responsibility from shareholder to the company. Then they gave exemption to the shareholder. Initially fully exempt. Later they said, okay, exemption is limited to 10 lakhs. Then they said now no need of any exemption. Shareholders dividend, whatever they receive, that is fully taxable as a income from other sources now. But dividend distribution tax is now abolished from the companies. Like this, laws keep on changing, taxation provisions keep on changing. So the company's dividend policy also has to take a note of that. It cannot say irrespective of any of these things, I will declare dividends. Now, if the company wants to declare dividend according to this new rule, shareholders don't like it. Why? Because it is taxable for them. They say, no, keep it with you only. No problem, you invest in the better opportunities. That is the idea. Shareholders do not want that burden additionally on them, tax burden, because now it is taxable in their hands. They usually now are reluctant to take dividends. Earlier, companies were reluctant to distribute dividends because they had to pay dividend distribution tax. Now that reluctance has been shifted from companies to shareholders. Reluctance is reluctance. Idea is the same. Government does not want dividends to be paid out too much. It wants the investments to be made more into the economy, because when the dividends are not declared, naturally the money will be retained in the organizations. That retained earnings will be invested. Then the growth of economy will happen. Employment opportunities will generate. That is the idea of the government. Whether completely will it be exactly converted into the reality or not is a different story. That always changes from time to time. But the idea is that dividends should be discouraged. That is a taxation policy of the company, of the government. So accordingly, the company also has to take its dividend policies. So taxation policies, legal policies of the government also will have impact on the dividend policy. These are the various factors which a company and management of a company has to take into consideration while declaring dividend, while taking a dividend decision, while taking a dividend policy. Same things are again and again repeated. You call it practical, sometimes you call it factors, sometimes ultimately it is the same. What are the things here? Financial needs of the company. If the financial needs of the company are more, then better to not declare dividend, retain them, use the retained earnings as a source of finance, naturally. Because whenever, if you have financial needs high, you cannot declare dividends first and then later search for finance. And searching for finance is not that easy, as we see in the textbooks. There will be a lot of big flotation costs also will be involved. Raising finance is not that easy, whether it is through a issue of debt or issue of new shares. In either cases, the raising of finance is something which is very complex process. So keeping that in mind, if the financial needs of the company are very heavy, then there is no point of distributing dividend and later searching for finance. Better to retain the earnings. But what if the company is already a mature company which has very few new investment opportunities? Better to have high payout ratio, better to declare dividends. That is the reason why we see most of the FMCG companies, fast moving consumer goods companies like ITC, like Unilever, Hindustan Unilever, like that, those companies do not need much of new investment. There is no need of much of new investment. They are already so settled and mature companies doing business from many decades. So what is their general policy will be? Because there is no much of investment opportunity, it's better to declare the dividends. Whatever the profits they get, most of them will be declared as dividends. Usually the mature companies will have high payout ratios. Growth companies, on the other hand, will have low payout ratios. Growth companies will have low payout ratios. Why? Because they are in need of finance, first of all. Because for their growth to be supported, they need finance. Where from they get? Of course, they can get from outside. But is it wise to first of all spill our water and then ask the neighbor for water? That is not correct. First, you have a glass of water, that is your profits. You retain it, na? Why you want to spill it first and then ask the neighbors for it? That is a generally stupid idea. But still, some people do that. That's a different story. Usually, the growth companies will not do that. If some people want to show that we are already mature, we are not growth, that is hypocrisy. Whatever the company it is, even if it is a country also. India is a growing country. We have to accept that, acknowledge that fact. We cannot be saying that we are already superpower, we are mature, because we are supplying vaccines to the 100 different countries. Just because of that, we are already superpower. That is nonsensical thought. It may feel good, but the reality is that definitely it is not the exact scenario. We are a growing country. When we are a growing country, we have to behave like a growing country. If we don't do that, then naturally problems will come. Same thing happened. Logically, if you see the real scenario recently, what happened? We have donated vaccines to everybody in the world. If they don't want it also, we said, please take it, no problem. Take the vaccines. India is giving you, take it free. And everybody said, thank you, super on the Twitter. Everything was good. Everybody was happy. Then what happened? When it comes to our people, now we have a vaccine shortage. Is that a wise thing to do? Definitely not. For a company also, it is not a wise thing to do. For a country also, it is not a wise thing to do. When you have your resources, keep it with you. That too when you need them. The point is when you need them. Okay, in our vaccine scenario, we overestimated that we don't need them. We thought that it is over, corona is over, so we thought we can give to others. That was a wrong judgment. Fine, people make mistakes. But the point is that mistake is costly. For the companies also, such mistakes can be costly. For a company which requires finance, but it still wants to spill its money first, give it out to people in the form of dividend, later start searching for finance. And if the market is bad that time, if the finance is not available that time, if the market liquidity is squeezed, then what the company will do? Company will go bankrupt. Such a fantastic opportunity company had, having a good retained earnings, good profits. What it did? It just spilled over. So, who can do that? Who can spill that over? Who have already higher levels of cash reserves, who have already higher levels of profits, which are stable mostly, not much of fluctuating. Those are what we call mature companies. In India, nowadays, mostly the information technology companies, almost all of them have become mature. The same companies 10 years back, 15 years back were growth companies. Now they are mature companies. Now the IT companies in India don't know what to do with money. They have so much cash. According to one recent publication, not only the information technology companies, the top companies, top 30 companies in India are sitting on almost 1.5 lakh crores of cash. More than 1.5 lakh crores of cash. What they should do with that cash? They don't have any investment opportunities. They don't want to invest. The return is not something that they are expecting, which is reasonable. So they are just sitting on the cash. So simply what they can do, they can definitely afford to give it to the shareholders. Whenever they get profits, give to the shareholders with a high payout ratios, no problem. They can afford that. For a highly rich person who has a lot of money, he can afford to give something for charity to others in a big scale. But for a small person who has nothing to, who has no much of reserves, he can afford, of course, according to his mentality, he can give some donations to others. But at the same time, that will be difficult to raise finance later after he donates everything and then searches for money, then nobody might help him. These are all stories from decades, centuries in India. We have been listening to them, but unfortunately, most of us don't learn from that. Companies definitely have to learn from that. Again, point again, always has to be kept in mind. If I take a decision which affects me, that is my problem. That's okay. I can go to hell. if a decision is taken by X, if X faces problems with that as an individual, he has spilled over all the money when he was earning high, and later on, and at his old age, he did not have any money and he died a very pathetic death. Like this, how many stories we would have read, including Mahanati, Savitri, everything, including so many things we see that. That is common, but that is their headache. They did not do anything wrong. Why? Because that is their headache. They did a mistake. They faced the problems. They faced the consequences. But can the company do that? Can the financial manager of a company do that? No, because it is not your money, boss. You are there as a guardian. Finance manager of a company or a CEO of the company is not the owner of the company. Owner is somebody else. Shareholders are the owners. The CEO is only guarding. That is what is. He is a trustee to the shareholders' funds. He cannot take decisions according to his whims and fancies and then later say, I did a mistake. Such things will not be acceptable for companies. Same thing happens to countries also, countries and states and governments also. They cannot take decisions according to their whims and fancies and later they say, by mistake we did this. That costs lives. In the case of companies, it costs money and it costs also lives. Don't think money is not lives. Lots of companies where there were mismanaged financially, the shareholders committed suicides because they invested heavily in those shares of the companies. And if the company's share suddenly drastically comes down, imagine just from 700 rupees to 6 rupees, what happens to an investor who has invested all his life savings in that company's share? So don't take these money matters of companies also light. These company matters, particularly all we are talking about, are public companies. Private companies, again, we don't care. If a private company has some losses, let it go to hell, let them face the losses, no problem. But if a public company, in which people have invested money in the stock market, if that bankrupts, if that busts, that will affect not only that company and CEOs and employees, it affects thousands of people. That is where the trusteeship of the management has to be shown, and that has to be shown in every decision. That is the reason why we are learning them very scientifically. Otherwise, what is the point? Ultimately, if we want one line, how the investment decisions are taken according to management, how the financing decisions are taken according to management, how the dividend decisions are taken according to management. So management, whatever it wants to take, it can take. That's fine. Does it mean they will take according to completely what their whims and fancies is the problem? So when people start taking decisions according to their whims and fancies, but not according to the scientific models, automatically that causes problems. And we have seen that, we are seeing that in the case of health management in this country. But unfortunately, that is not something which was expected. But in case of companies, if a similar thing happens in the form of finance, I give first of all money to shareholders in the form of dividends when I have it. Later, when I require money, means the company requires money if there is no availability of funds, and then I start searching for finance, but there is nobody to lend me also, then the company itself is in doldrums. You may think that I have done a good job by giving money to the public or shareholders, but the same shareholders will get completely zero money back because the company itself is gone. The company may go into liquidation. So such dangers will be also there, and that is the reason why dividend policies cannot be taken lightly. A very crucial decision. Of course, any decision is crucial since these are all long-term decisions, and long-term decisions do not mean only decision is taken in the long run. Decision is taken in a minute. Decisions are not taken for years and years. Decision can be taken in a minute or a second. Impact of that will be long run. So financing decisions also, the investment decisions also, dividend decisions also, these are all strategic decisions. They are not some operational decisions like working capital management. That is why these are to be taken care of very, very carefully. After crucial and careful considerations only these decisions have to be taken. So that is about the mature companies policy, or we can say strategy generally. And these shares are generally sensitive to the dividend payout. Let us say an FMCG company which normally pays 40 to 50% of its earnings as dividend, that is its normal tendency from past 4 or 5 years. Suddenly if it says, no, now I want to declare only 10%, people may not like it because people expect that. We will expect a standard amount of payout from mature companies. So the share prices of these companies are sensitive to the changes in dividend payout. But usually this kind of growth companies, shareholders do not expect dividends. Why? Because they know very well this is a growth company. Who asked you to invest in a growth company? Because growth companies don't declare dividends, you know that. Still you invested. So you don't expect dividend, you expect growth. If the company is not growing, then you have a problem. But if the company is distributing dividends or not distributing dividends, that generally will not be a big deal about the shareholders. So usually the shares of the growth companies are not sensitive to dividend payout, because usually these companies retain all their earnings. Usually they don't declare dividends at all, because they need money for themselves, for the company itself. Themselves means company. So shareholders also know that. They are not some fools. They know this is a growth company. They invested also not for dividend but for growth. So no dividends are going to be heavily affecting the growth company's share price. That is first point. And in case of mature companies, a small portion of the earnings is only kept aside as retained earnings. Of course, in case of growth companies, they will completely retain their earnings. They will not declare any dividends. Mostly the growth companies do not declare dividends at all. That is their general tendency. For general practical considerations and example, Microsoft, Bill Gates, when he started it, and Microsoft in the initial years, more than a decade, not 1 year or 2 years, more than a decade, Microsoft did not declare 1 cent dividend also. Not even 1 cent dividend Microsoft declared. So does it mean people hated Microsoft? No. People still like Microsoft. Liked that. Now is different story. Now it is a mature company. At that time it was a growth company. So being a growth company, it never declared a dividend. And when people asked it also, Bill Gates used to say, no, I will not give you anything. I will invest in the company. So like that it grew. At that point in time, it was a growth company. So no declaration of dividend. The entire profits will be generally retained by the company, which is called as plowing back of profits, as we know already, that word. That is simply nothing but retained earnings. These are the practical considerations for mature companies and growth companies differently. And the constraints of paying dividend, same things once again, nothing new. Legal constraints will be there. Liquidity constraints are huge. See, one point you have to keep in mind, profits are different from cash. Profits are accounting profits. Cash is reality. So company may have a fantastic profits, but still it may not have sufficient cash. So that just looking at profits, you cannot say more dividend can be given. Liquidity may not be there. So liquidity is a very crucial factor while declaring dividends. Same thing, access to capital markets. How easily you can access to capital markets. In mature countries where markets are perfect, access will be relatively easier. But countries which are growing countries like India, it is difficult to access capital markets. How difficult it is to go for an IPO. It's not that easy. So for many companies, access to capital markets is very limited. So better is what? Better to retain rather than distribute dividends, so that you don't have to run for capital markets for the future requirements of capital. You can use your own earnings, internal earnings, for the purpose of growth. And investment opportunities, of course. If there are good investment opportunities, retain. If there are no investment opportunities, better to pay out to the shareholders as dividend. And the desire of the shareholders also will be there. Desire of the shareholders, we cannot actually put it in one category. We know already there will be all categories of shareholders. There will be people who want dividend heavily, who don't want dividend also, who want regular cash flows, who don't want regular cash flows, who want growth. So all of them have to be balanced, and the companies and managements of the companies have to try to satisfy those desires of the shareholders. That is one of the other points to be noted also. Then stability of dividends also is an important thing. Usually people expect from reputed companies a stability of dividend. They don't expect too much fluctuations in the dividend. So what kind of strategies the company can adopt for different types of dividend policies? So these are the possible things which can be asked as 3 questions also. How the stability of dividends can be maintained by the companies? What are the strategies that the companies can adopt for maintaining stability of dividends? Can be a question. First possibility is that they maintain a constant dividend per share. Irrespective of the earnings, dividend per share is constant. The earnings will not be definitely constant. Earnings depend upon the performance of the company. So look at this here. This is EPS for a company for a period of time, and this is time, years, and Earnings are changing. Earnings are definitely changing. They will change. But how is dividend per share? More or less constant. Constant does not mean for the entire life, 40 years, I will have one dividend policy. Nobody will have that. For some time, okay, 2-3 years, same dividend. Then a little bit of expectation is more in the people and earnings are good. Now increase the dividend a little bit. Okay, then fine, again constant. Then again earnings are good, so again increase the dividend, keep it constant. So usually the dividend per share is constant. Again, constant does not mean constant eternally. Constant for some period of time. Every year though definitely the dividend is not fluctuating. For some years it is constant. Later a bit of increase or decrease may happen depending upon the other factors. Then there might be a further constancy of dividend for a few more years. Like that, constant dividend policy is one type of policy that companies adopt. That is one thing. So what they will do in order to maintain a constant dividend amount is they can create something called as a dividend equalization reserve fund. So wherein they will have a separate fund that is created because of the changes in earnings. The dividend should not change. That is the purpose of this fund. So whenever they have good earnings, they will transfer some money or they will transfer some funds to this account, dividend equalization reserve fund account, so that they can maintain constant dividends irrespective of the fluctuations in the earnings per share. Sometimes even the earnings per share go down. For example, if you see in this year the earnings per share have gone down. Fine, but still the dividend has not gone down. They still maintain the same dividend. That is the purpose of it. For that purpose, they can create a dividend equalization reserve fund. That is one strategy for maintaining the stability of dividends. That is one way of stable dividends, not the only way. Another way is that constant percentage of net earnings. For example, just for understanding purposes, take the practical thing. Somewhere long back, 2011, Infosys company's annual report stated that the dividend policy is to distribute 30% of the consolidated profit after the profit after tax of the Infosys group as dividend. That's it. So that is the policy of the Infosys. They declared it openly. Fixed percentage of earnings, whatever the earnings may be. Earnings are more, dividend will be more. If earnings are less, dividend will be less. But irrespective of earnings, they will have 30% of the earnings as distributed as dividend. That means 70% naturally they wanted to retain. That was an old policy. Recently they are declaring higher dividends than that. As I said already, since earlier those were growth companies, now mature companies, the policies will change. Right? So that is the point here. On one hand, Infosys says that. And contrary to this, Warren Buffett says we will not distribute any dividend. There is no logic in paying out 10% or 20% of earnings as dividends every year, because definitely we can get more money through reinvestments. Definitely that is better. What he says, Warren Buffett, because he will say that I can get better return than the shareholders. So better to retain than to invest is their policy. Like that everybody, as I said, Microsoft had a different dividend policy initially. Bill Gates said openly that we will not declare any dividend. Just the only thing he did not tell is go to hell. But effectively that's what he told to his shareholders initially, more than a decade. But later he started distributing dividend. So these things keep on changing. People like Warren Buffett, they are investors. We cannot say those are people who are running the companies as such. So when their business itself is investment, they don't want the money to be distributed as dividend. They want that to be further and further invested so that future growth will be higher. Like that, different types of companies will have different types of policies. So ultimately, depends upon all these factors, the company's dividend policy will be definitely taken. And once the dividend policy is taken, there has to be a kind of stability of the dividends maintained, preferably. There is no rule like that. By having a constant dividend per share, that is one type of strategy, or by having a constant percentage of net earnings as a dividend payout ratio. That is also another way. So in the case of first scenario, DPS is fixed, dividend per share is fixed. In case of second scenario, payout ratio is fixed. That is the second strategy. But usually the companies prefer a mixed strategy. So there is better a small constant dividend per share also plus extra dividend. So constant dividend constancy is maintained, plus some extra dividend depends upon the performance. If the earnings are more, that extra dividend will be more. If the earnings are less, that extra dividend will be less. So that is something like a semi-variable cost type of situation applying to dividends. There is some standard amount of dividend. In addition to that, there is extra dividend also. So dividend per share is not constant here, but still it is going to be changing. Not in a very highly fluctuating manner, in more or less a constant manner. That is what happens. In case a company decides to have a constant dividend, first of all, to some extent a constant per share dividend, then have a percentage of earnings also, that is also possible. A company can say, I will give 1 rupee per share as dividend constant plus 20% of the EPS. Fine. So there is a constant dividend also plus some percentage of earnings also given as dividend, which is nothing but a mix of the first two strategies. So these are the three strategies which can be adopted for the purpose of maintaining the constancy of dividend. So this is the basic introduction to dividend policy. What is the importance and significance of dividend policy? What are the factors that will affect the dividend policy? How the companies can take different strategies to maintain the stability of the dividends. Out of all, definitely the concept of dividend and retained earnings and its relation to the growth has to be remembered also very well. And the concept of dividend and retained earnings, how it has an impact on the wealth of the shareholders also has to be understood. All these various aspects, most importantly, once you understand the factors affecting the dividend policy, everything else automatically falls into the same category. So that concludes the introductory lecture on dividend policies. In the next session, we will enter into the real theories of dividend. And as we already touched it, there are two types of theories. One is dividend irrelevance theories and the other one is dividend relevance theories. Irrelevance theories are proposed by Modigliani Miller. Relevance theories are told by two different people. One is Walter model and the other one is Gordon's model. We will see these models, formulae, and of course solving of some problems related to these models also will be done in the next session. Till then, take care. Bye bye. Thank you very much.